Welcome to another episode of the Retirepreneur podcast. I'm your host with this week's executive summary for busy entrepreneurs building their second act business. Today's episode is designed for maximum impact in minimum time.
Yeah, and I'm thrilled to be back for this deep dive because honestly, the material we are covering today is, well, it's the fundamental difference between building a thriving business and building a really, really expensive hobby.
Right, exactly. Because to set the stage here, I want to describe a scenario that is, frankly, a little terrifying for a lot of you listening. Imagine you're a seasoned professional. You've got 30 years of high-level experience, and you decide, okay, I'm going to launch a consulting practice.
Right, the classic pivot. You have the skills, you have the resume, it feels like a sure thing.
So you spend 3, maybe 4 months in what I call the bunker. You're just in build mode. You are building the absolute perfect service package. You're dialing in the pricing, polishing the messaging.
You're paying a designer a few $1,000s for a fancy logo.
Exactly. And then you finally launch it to the world, and
Crickets. Absolute silence.
it's the nightmare scenario. And unfortunately, looking at the data, it's incredibly common among professionals over 55 launching a second act. You launch to silence, and it just crushes your confidence.
And the knee-jerk reaction when that happens is to blame, the tactical stuff. You think, oh, my marketing is broken. I need better Facebook ads, or maybe my website needs a different font.
But looking at the insights from the Retirepreneur platform, that is almost never the actual problem, is it?
No, it's not. It's rarely a marketing problem. It is almost always a listening problem. The core thesis of our deep dive today is that you have to validate that people actually want what you're creating before you build a single thing.
Which sounds obvious on the surface, but the data suggests we're terrible at actually doing it. I was looking at this stat from CB Insights from our briefing material. 42% of startups fail because there is simply no market need.
Exactly. And I want to be really clear here. That isn't just a statistic for tech bros in Silicon Valley. That applies directly to the 55-plus professional. If you build a solution for a problem nobody is actively prioritizing, it doesn't matter how experienced you are.
Right. It doesn't matter if you have 30 years at a Fortune 500 company.
Exactly. If the market doesn't feel the pain, you will fail.
So our mission today is to stop that from happening. We are going to extract the 3 most actionable insights from the Retirepreneur methodology on how to actually validate your offer. We're going to talk about the expert's curse, how to run a simple validation process, and how to turn those early conversations into a sellable offer.
It is essentially a roadmap to capital preservation. We want to protect your time and, frankly, your nest egg.
Capital preservation. I love that framing. So let's dive into this first insight, the expert's curse. Because this feels like a paradox to me. If I have 3 decades of experience, shouldn't that make me less likely to fail?
It's a cruel irony, isn't it? But here's the reality. The deeper your knowledge, the harder it is to remember what it felt like not to know it. Behavioral economists call this the curse of knowledge.
Okay, let's unpack that. Because most experts feel like their knowledge is their biggest asset.
It is an asset for delivering the work, definitely. But it is a massive liability for selling and packaging the work. Think about it like driving a car. You and I, we get in a car, we start the engine, we just drive.
Right, I'm not thinking about the mechanics of the engine or how hard to press the gas pedal. I'm just getting groceries.
Exactly. It's muscle memory.
Yeah.
But if you tried to explain driving to a complete beginner using your current level of understanding, you would skip 50 steps. You would assume they know things they just don't know.
So when experienced professionals go to package their services, they assume their audience is looking for high-level, complex strategy.
Correct. They assume the client wants the level 10 conversation. But usually, the client is drowning at level 1. The client is stuck in the mud, and the expert is trying to teach them aerodynamics.
There was a great concept in the reading called the 10-second answer problem.
Yeah, that perfectly illustrates it. The answer a pro can give in 10 seconds usually took them 10 years to learn. It is the result of massive pattern recognition. But if you package your offer at that 10-second level, you are going to miss your audience completely.
Because you're solving the problems you wish you had now rather than the basic problems the client has right this second.
Precisely. You're trying to teach complex organizational psychology to a manager who just wants their team to stop showing up late.
Which leads to a really key distinction in the material complexity versus clarity. As experts, we have this ego thing where we think people pay for complexity.
We want to show off our intricate 17-step framework, but they don't pay for that. They pay for clarity. What feels too simple for you to teach is often exactly what the market is starving for.
It's like we feel guilty charging for the easy stuff. So if we accept we have this blind spot, how do we fix it? The briefing draws a sharp line between market research and validation.
Night and day difference. And confusing them is fatal. Market research is passive. It's reading industry reports, stalking competitors on LinkedIn. It's sitting at your desk safe and sound.
It feels like work, but it's safe.
Exactly. Validation is active. It's a contact sport. You cannot validate an idea by looking at a graph. You validate it by talking to a human being to determine if they have a real willingness to pay.
The Harvard Business Review had a stat on this. Companies that engage customers during development are 60% more likely to achieve product market fit.
And for a solo consultant, that 60% is everything. Validation prevents you from wasting 6 months building a course you just have to scrap later.
Okay, so we're sold on the why. Let's move to insight number 2, the tactical execution. Because this is where people freeze up. They think, okay, I need to talk to people, but who? How? It feels aggressive.
It can feel daunting, sure. But the approach here breaks it down into just 10 conversations. You don't need a massive focus group or a research firm.
But the immediate pushback I always hear is, I don't have an email list, I don't have a follower, where do I find these 10 people?
That is a logistics problem, not a research problem. If you are a professional over 55, you have a network. Former colleagues, professional associations, alumni networks.
The briefing mentioned that adults 50 plus start 25% of all new U.S. businesses. The peers you want to serve are already in your phone contacts.
Right. You aren't cold calling strangers. You're asking for perspective from a peer who already respects you.
So let's role play the outreach. Nobody wants to be the person sliding into a LinkedIn message with a disguised sales pitch. That destroys credibility.
The key is keeping it extremely low pressure. You say something like, I'm developing resources for professionals transitioning out of corporate roles, and I'd value 15 minutes of your perspective. No pitch, just questions.
No pitch, just questions. That is the magic phrase.
It lowers their defenses immediately. People love to give advice. It flatters them.
Then once you get them on the call, there are really only 2 magic questions you need to ask.
Just 2. Question 1. What is your biggest obstacle right now regarding this topic? And question 2. What have you already tried to fix it?
That second question feels like where the real depth is. What have you already tried?
That is the validation goldmine. That separates the nice-to-haves from the need-to-haves.
Because humans just love to complain.
Oh, we do, constantly. But if they complain about a problem and haven't actually spent time or money trying to fix it, it is not a business problem.
It's just a complaint.
Exactly. If you ask a prospect about lead gen and they say, well, we're just thinking about it, they aren't ready to buy consulting. They are in the contemplation phase.
But if they say, I hired an agency and they failed, or I bought a course and didn't finish it.
Now you have a validated market.
Yeah.
They have skin in the game. They've already allocated a budget of time or money to this. That is the priority test.
And you wrap up with follow-up questions like, what would a solution need to look like? And crucially, who else do you know dealing with this?
Yes. Asking who else they know is how you find your next interview. That's how you hit 10 conversations without an email list. It snowballs.
I do want to clarify one thing, though. Why are we doing interviews instead of just a survey? I could blast out a SurveyMonkey link to 100 people in 10 minutes.
It's faster, yes, but totally useless at this stage. Surveys give you breadth, but interviews give you depth.
Because early on, you don't even know what options to put on the multiple choice form.
Exactly. If someone checks a box saying pricing is a problem, you don't know what about pricing is the problem. Is it too high? Too complex? In an interview, you can hear the hesitation and dig deeper. Don't scale until you know what you are scaling.
Makes total sense. Let's move to insight number 3, decoding the data. You have your 10 calls. Now what? The goal isn't just to hear the problem, it's to document the exact language.
You need to be a court stenographer. You have to document the exact phrases they use to describe their hell.
Why does the exact phrasing matter so much? Why can't I just translate it into professional corporate speak?
Because your professional speak is the expert's curse creeping back in. If they say, I'm running around like a chicken with its head cut off, and you write, experiencing workflow inefficiencies, you lose them.
So if your website uses their exact phrase, they'll stop and think you're reading their diary.
Precisely. It's not manipulation, it's resonance. Let them write your marketing copy for you.
And that ties right back to the willingness to pay. You look for patterns.
Right. One conversation is an anecdote, but 10 is data. If 3 or 4 people independently use the same language for the same obstacle and have tried to fix it, you have a green light.
What's the red light then?
The red light is the shrug. If they describe a problem, but when you ask what they've tried, They just shrug and say they live with it.
The shrug is the enemy of the entrepreneur.
It really is. You cannot care more about solving their problem than they do. Your expertise simply won't sell there.
Now, there is a hidden benefit to doing these 10 conversations that I found fascinating in the Retirepreneur material. It's a Trojan horse for sales.
It happens naturally. You just spent 20 minutes listening deeply to someone's biggest challenge without pitching them. You demonstrated empathy just by listening.
Which is incredibly rare.
So when you actually build the solution a few weeks later, they're usually the first to ask if you can help them. The person giving feedback becomes the first client.
It shortens the time between starting the business and earning the first dollar, which is the ultimate goal for protecting that nest egg.
Absolutely. So to summarize, do the 10 conversations, ask the magic questions, listen for patterns, and then create the offer.
And do not build the slide deck or the website until you talk to people.
Right. Building a business without talking to people is just building a fantasy.
That hits home. It gives you so much confidence when you do launch, though. You aren't hoping,
You go from, I hope they like this, to here's the exact thing you asked for.
which changes everything. Now, before we wrap up today, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. What if this validation process actually reveals that you don't enjoy solving this specific problem? You might find a perfectly profitable market need, but realize during these interviews that you would absolutely hate doing the work every day. Validation isn't just about protecting your wallet, it's about protecting your time and your sanity in this second act.
That is a phenomenal point. You're validating the business for them, but you also have to validate it for yourself.
Exactly. That's your executive briefing for this week. If you found value in these insights, share this episode with fellow retirepreneurs and subscribe to the Retirepreneur newsletter at retirepreneur.com. Follow us for weekly strategic insights, and remember, your most successful chapter is just beginning. Until next week, keep building.